Hi guys, how are you? Welcome back to my garden. It's time for a full-on garden spring tour. We're at the end of spring. We're really in between the seasons when spring is gently fading away and we're just on the verge into slipping into summer, and it is wonderful. It is warm. We're already in the evening and the back of the garden is filled with gorgeous golden sunlight. So can't wait to show you around. The way on how I'm going to structure the video is I want to do two parts. So first of all, I want to focus on the entire upper garden and tour you around, starting here in the front garden. And then in part two, I want to take you with me into the back of the garden, on the terrace garden in my brand new vegetable garden, and really show you what happened there. So I hope that you're excited to join us in the garden. Hope you're ready. We are? Are we ready? Yes, come on. We are ready to go. We're standing in the middle of the front garden right now, and as we discover the back of the garden, you will see that the entire back is sun-filled because the back of a property is west-facing, and it's very beautiful and special at this time of the day and also of the year. The sunlight is very golden, and it just has a certain kind of atmosphere. It's very melancholic at times, and this is the exact time of the day when normally I take photos for my Instagram account. So if you want to see more from my garden and not just the YouTube videos, you can always pay a visit to my Instagram account and you'll find the link just down below each and every video. If you take a look at the front garden, and I think that this is quite a good example already on how the color scheme works here. Normally when it comes to garden and colors, I shy away a little bit from yellow. And looking at the front garden, you might be like, well, that doesn't really look like it. Over the years, I tested things out and I tried to acquaint it with colors that I normally struggle with. And I figured that when yellow is more chartreuse or in this like sulfury world, I really love it because I feel it works extremely well with green foliage and it works really beautiful with tones of violet and purple like the Nepeta here. You're going to see a big, beautiful drift just as we go to the front of the garden. What you see here in this border too is there is quite a classic border, like in terms of height. The shorter plants are in the front and then it goes taller towards the back. And some of the plants you can already see how tall they want to grow. This here is Finnish knotweed. It really can grow like 1,80 m, 2 meters even. It has these really wonderful, almost like plume flowers, white, feathery, very interesting texture, and it works extremely well, for example, with a miscanthus here, which is also going to grow very tall, more of the euphorbia here. And then as we go to the front of the border, I already told you there are some really beautiful Nepeta catmint here. This is a variety Walker Slow, which I have everywhere in my garden. And then in combination with the iris here, this is my favorite bearded iris. It's called English Cottage. One thing that you will see as we walk through the garden is that this year it kind of collapses. You see a lot of the stems, this one is even like broken at this point. I'm not quite sure what the problem is, but what you should do with bearded iris in general, and I left it now for the video, you always have new buds and you always have fresh flowers coming and appearing. So you should always come in with your finger and nip off the spent flowers so that everything which is kind of like no good anymore gets away. And especially here you have a fresh bud and then you have the flower that is spent. So you just come in with your finger, you nip it off. Normally everything should come out. It doesn't now, but then there's room for the new fresh flower. They're even scented, very beautiful. The buds are a little bit on the purple side and then they have these like purple veins in here. So I think it looks really nice to have like the purple with the Nepeta and then just a touch of purple and a touch of yellow again in this iris here. So always when you do planting, try and think about the colors and how you can tie colors together. And even if you have a predominantly white flower like here, maybe there's an opportunity to choose a flower that has elements of other colors within this one bloom. So now there go the buds. Don't clean them. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to be like later on I put it on a compost. I just always put them somewhere in the borders. So if we walk through the front garden now, I think you can really see the beauty of the light in my back. It's now piercing through the walnut tree. And I think especially here in the border that is facing the house, you can really see the color concept, how it all comes together here in the front garden. There is a Mediterranean euphorbia, which is evergreen. So it is an amazing structure throughout winter time. And now it's just smothered in these big blooms, like big clumps of color. I'm very thrilled by these. big patch of nepeter here. There were some white tulips in there before, which already spent flowers. So also with the tulips, whenever you see like these combs left, you would just like nip them off and then in they go, because you don't want that the tulip produce seed. You want to make sure that the tulip has enough power to go back into the bulb so it can produce more bulbs at the side to flower again next year. So always snip off the seed pods. And as we continue, there are sedums here, and then there is a big drift of another euphorbia. This is called Tall Boy, and what is very special about it is the scent. Like 2 weeks ago, it really smelled like honey, like opening the window, which is like the kitchen window here. The entire scent of this beautiful euphorbia was going indoors, and the entire house really smelled like honey. It was fantastic. The one thing with this euphorbia is it doesn't now know its boundaries. It really spreads with runners, and you can see that already some of the first have arrived here in between the sedum. So once there's been flowering, what I will do is I will come in here and just with a spade and really define the border again and take some of them out. I have to see where I put them, because I really have a problem when I have such beautiful plants to just like take them out and put them on the compost heap. So you really have to see. Another really beautiful thing is just this entire area as we're approaching here. Remember the urn last year, winter, I did a video about it. I have to plant it now again, so I want to put some white petunias in here. And then we have the nice view onto the terrace, which is now framed by this glorious wisteria. Again, I did a video where I built the support system with you. I showed you how to train it. I did a video when you have to prune your wisteria. So always February and July, those are the 2 months when you should get in there with your secateurs and really cut it back. And it's all worth it, because now you can see, especially here, these cascades of blue blooms. They are so rich and fragrant. Especially as we walk through the garden, there will be a lot of plants that really come with fragrance, and they are just beautiful. Again, you have this like lilac pale tone from the wisteria, and then the same color almost here in these magnificent bearded iris. I have a great big love affair for bearded iris. They grow fantastic here in this garden. This is a variety called a coma, and if you come closer, it's really worth looking at the beautiful color that you will find here, because you have like the white, then you have the blue veins running around it, and then the center pale violet. Really fantastic, beautiful blooms, very big. They flower very long. So that is definitely an absolute incredible variety if you're looking for bearded iris. One more thing that we said is like looking at this side here of the border. It looks nice, and it's not necessarily something wrong with that, but it is missing this element of blue, because in the entire front garden we have this mixture of like euphorbia, hints of white, which we would have here with the foliage of the hostas, but we're totally missing the blue. So what I want to do is, here are some hydrangeas that are kind of fizzling away a little bit. They're not looking fantastic, they're not dead though. So I think I'm going to lift them, put them somewhere else where I think that they will thrive better. And that gives me an opportunity to put some nepeter there, because it's partly shade, and nepeter thrives pretty well in partly shade too. One more thing that we want to do in the front garden is we try to connect to flower beds. Now this was an ongoing thought process that we had for the past couple of years really, because this flower bed swings out here and then it ends in the hedge. And then there is a hedge, and then there is a next flower bed with a bench and the willow tree as focal point. In between here there is our lawn, which is not fantastic throughout the garden. We don't really have nice English lawn. I recently saw a TV program called Great British Gardens, which is not really recent, but I just saw it on YouTube. And there was one woman saying that she has her tulips and she always puts them in her lawn and they flower, and it's called apparently jeweled lawn or something like that. And I thought, oh, I also have a jeweled lawn. I just don't have tulips in here. I just have gazillions of daisies and dandelions in here. But in the long run, it's not great, and we really don't know what to do with the lawn. So what we want to do is connect these two flower beds and really still have to find the lines on how to make it look organic. So that, I don't know, I don't want that it looks like a green worm of grass running through here, but this is what we just recently discovered, so we still have to see how we're going to do it. So let's just continue walking, and what is really beautiful now is that you see it's almost like this gateway here. On one side there is a topiary piece, On the other side, there is a sumac tree. And then as you walk from the front garden into the midsection of the garden, it is sun-filled suddenly. It's instantly kind of warm, the sun is out, it's really beautiful. What I want to show you are just these tiny corners in this video, which generally make me happy and what I think they're very pretty, especially at this time of the year. Those are corners where I think even if you have a smaller garden, you can easily recreate something like this. And this is a beautiful example, I think, of, again, bearded iris English cottage. And then here are some Aquilegia. This is called William Guinness. It is purple and white in the center. So again, we have this combination of like shades of blue with white again in the iris. These are some tulips that I planted a couple years ago, and some of them come back. This is Victoria's Secret. And then later on in the year, there will be phlox here. This is Phlox David. So in white, and then again, you just saw a lot of the hostas with a white leaf variegation. So in general, I think it's a very nice example of a cute kind of like cottage garden area here. And as we just like continue walking through the garden, one thing that you will see very fast is that I like to start the year in terms of color very light. It's pale, it's a lot of white, it's a lot of blush, it's like violet and lilac and purple. So I don't really start with like rich colors. Like later on in the year, I also have like red and I have dark red and I have like these zingy colors. But for some weird reason, I don't really love it too early in the year. I always want to start fresh. So if you continue walking, you see like again English cottage, you see a dwarf lilac which is beautifully scented. I'm going to show you another one later on. More nepeta here, and then here now the outer dinner table underneath the walnut trees is in full sun at the moment. Really nice. The walnut tree, there is a white rambling rose in here, so I think in a month, 1.5 months from now, there will be a lot of beautiful white flowers in the walnut tree, which is always really exciting to see. And if we just continue walking here and you stand here and just look down, this is one of my favorite vistas into the garden because you see very well how the garden is laid out. There are no straight lines. Everything is very organic. We have these big meanders in the flower beds and with the lawn to really connect the garden with the landscape in the back because the garden sits on top of a dike, and that means that we are elevated and we really have a nice view over the farmland in the back and really into the hedgerows and into the open landscape. So we try to keep everything very open. The entire garden is not designed in garden rooms, even though there is a front garden, but nothing really is set up as a room with different topics. I really wanted to make sure that there is an organic flow from the front garden to the midsection of the garden all the way to the back. So if we look here, this is also a tiny area that I want to point out today because I think it looks really beautiful, especially now this time of the year. White geranium in the front here, big drift of white is so wonderful. And they already start to spread throughout different parts of the garden. So whatever else you see, peps of white from the geranium, they just all came there, they were all self-seeding. And I also want to point out the importance of using different foliage color, even in evergreen. So here in the front, there is a blue spruce. So you have this really nice blue from a conifer. And then in the back, there is a catinus, a smoke shrub, smoke bush, I think. Well, unfortunately, one of the big main leaders, it died back, but still it comes back with a lot of vigorous growth from the base. So there is this like dark, rich plum color foliage in the back of a border. Big drifts of Hydrangea paniculata limelight here. So really a lot to look forward to. They look really well this year. Again, the lilac here, very nice, and it fills just the air with its fragrance, especially now in the evening hours. So there's always a beauty, like when you come out in the morning, the lilac really is very like rich in scent and it's just amazing. Same here, another dwarf variety, just standing here, it's fantastic. So if you want to bring scent into your garden, I'd really recommend these dwarf lilacs because they are just incredible. And also I think the color is very beautiful. It's very pale, blush tone, and it works so well with the nepeta here, for example, with the Aquilegia, with the grasses, asters to come. So I think in general, just a nice example for really soft colors and how you can start your garden year. I still want to show you my last bit of tulips that are looking nice because my favorite tulip is called Silver Cloud. And this year I really uploaded more tulip photos also on my Instagram account. So there you see all different kind of tulips that I grow here in the garden. And here you still see my last patch because this is where they are in partly shade, so they came to bloom very late. Really beautiful, interesting colors, big, very simple, and like blush silvery, and then a little bit bluish grayish towards the center. Also the pollen is gray inside. Now with the light they look so pretty, don't they? And then some dark tulips still there. This is Paul Skira. In the back there are 2 hydrangeas. These are incredible, from proven winners, so I'm really excited to see how they're going to look. My roses here, this is Novalis. This is a true violet rose. It's called a romantic rose because it's double. Normally I don't really plant anything that has double flowers, but that rose was so special in color that I really needed to have it. So if we just like walk around this corner here, you see unfortunately there, the bearded iris, that they're really collapsing. I mean, it's kind of sad, but every year has its surprises. So last year they were all upright and they were perfect, and this year they're all kind of just like collapsing. It's maybe they're too top heavy. We haven't had a lot of rain, / we haven't had any rain in 2 weeks. So maybe this also factors in. I'm not really sure what the problem is. Normally iris really love to bake and bask in the sun, so it should be ideal for them, and they are flowering ideal, but this is just what gardening brings. Again, a really nice drift of Nepeta. You see it is a focal point here in the garden. And if you just follow me and just look through this bed here to the garden shed, this is one of my favorite vistas and angles into the garden right now, because you really see all these colors that I love to have in a spring garden. So if I just walk in here, you still have more of the beautiful tulips. This is, again, Victoria's Secret, fantastic big blooms. They also change the color. As they open, they're more burgundy, and then towards the end, they're really this interesting berry tone, like a blackberry. Then Aquilegia, this is Miscanthus, this is Cosmopolitan, has a white variegation in a green and white. Then the iris, more Aquilegia, and then the back, the garden shed. It's so cute how it's nestled in amongst all the planting with the geraniums in the front, the blue spruce, and then just these big shrubs in the back. So I think it's just a very nice vista into the garden in general. So one thing, and I'm really glad, oh, Alfie is also here now. Alfie's exploring the borders right now. Still hoping to find a walnut, probably. And you found a leaf. Well, I'm going to take care of that later. But one thing, and that's really why I wanted to do the video today, because I wanted to show you the wisteria here at the back of the garage. The garage is not really pretty here in the garden, and I try to hide it as good as I can. In the front there are rambling roses, and in the back there is a wisteria. And this, I think, is a prime example. If you really have your pruning game on and you just do it twice a year, it really doesn't require more than that, you're rewarded with this. I mean, now the leaves are coming. A week ago, there was no single leaf in there. It was only flowers, big cascades of blue just coming down, and the scent of it is unbelievable. This is like sweet perfume. It's perfect. It was smothered in bumblebees. So bumblebees really love wisteria, and just these blooms as they come down here, and it's just pretty. I really love it. Don't want to miss it. I had a couple of comments of people saying like, oh my God, wisteria is almost a fuck. I think it really is panning on your climate zone. Here we are at the south coast of the Baltic Sea, and in Europe we are a zone 7B. I think in the US climate zones are a little different, because I figured that Atlanta, for example, I thought was also a climate zone 7, and the climate here is definitely different to Atlanta. So yeah, I think climate zones are a little different, just to say it. So they are vigorous here, but wisteria does not grow to this monstrous size here. This is still an area which is under development at one point, I always say. But we already built our first Adiron deck chair. I'm really proud of that we did it. It was definitely a little longer project, I have to say, but it is so comfortable, you have no idea. And what we plan for this area is, in general, to have 3 to 4 of these deck chairs, then a round-shaped terrace, but it will be mulched in, probably maybe with gravel, maybe with mulch, have to see, and then a fire bowl in the middle, and then in my back there is a birch, which I already supported with one beam, because I hope that the birch starts to just grow a little more towards the sky, and it's not like always hanging down. I mean, it is a weeping birch, but some of the branches are already just like going the right direction, so I just wanted to encourage it to really grow a little more vertical rather than just like drooping down. So at one point the idea is that when you're sitting here, you're under this like umbrella of a birch. I hope this is going to work. In my fantasy, it does at least. If we continue working now, oh, that was comfy. I could have just stayed there. You see the hatch in the back. All of those are you. We haven't cut them, but they're already looking pretty good, I have to say. Miscanthus in the front. Then in the front row there is a daylily, which was gifted to me. So normally I would not have chosen that because they are really orange, like brownish orange. They're very vigorous though, and when something is really vigorous, I just can't throw it away. It's really not in me. So I'm like, okay, I don't love the color, but whatever, I'm still gonna keep on with them. Here there is something new in the garden, and I think this is really just a perfect area for it. So I have a potting bench. I have a sponsorship from a German furniture supplier, which is called Gapa, and they produce really high-end furniture. So they gave me a couple of things. So on my Instagram, you'll also see that I'm going to do some reels with that in my stories. And I have to say, it's here now for a week and a half or 2 weeks, and I love it. First of all, I think it is an amazing focal point because suddenly there is something where your eye can rest and where you can just look at something. Before it was just like some plants and there we sit. I think it looks really nice in general, also how it fits in this entire corner with the Aquilegia in the back, Miscanthus, Veronica, a rose here, then I've got a cardoon there, and then obviously in between the trees, so there's a plum tree on the right, there's a chestnut here on the left with a lot of Aquilegia growing in between there. One thing that I lost, unfortunately, remember last autumn I did a video where I planted some beauties here, and guess what? Now I forgot the name even. Fire and Ice, but what is it? It's gone. I planted tiny shrubs with orange foliage and they just didn't make it. And really the name is just completely gone, even though in English and German it's the same name. So yeah, there was, well, money not well invested, but this is what gardening sometimes is, you know. You have your moments when you want to try something new and then you just like land on your belly, and this was one of those examples, unfortunately. So I have to find something different, maybe a perfect location for the hydrangeas that I'm going to transplant from the front garden, because I think that they'd be fairly happy there. This is, I think, a really nice example on how the light comes into the garden. So I'm just going to walk in here now. There are Calamagrostis grasses, which I always love because they create these big drifts and almost hedges. And then there are Aquilegia growing in between. And it's a very interesting blend, I think. It's like all different kind of blues and pink and purple, a little white here and there. And we were just talking earlier on where I said like, oh, maybe we should just separate them and just only have purple here, and I take the pink to just down the on the terrace garden. But then we said like, maybe it's nice that it is like that. Maybe it's just nice that it is a blend because it is all in the same world of color and they just look so whimsical and really pretty together. So maybe they stay as they are. But in general, I think it's just a wonderful idea to show you. If you have grasses, if you don't only want to have grasses, if you want to have a time of the year when there's something flowering between, Aquilegia are definitely the wonderful plant that you can put here. Another thing that we discussed is the entire situation with a fence. Because number one, it separates the terrace garden from the upper garden, which is sad because it kind of is an organic connection between the two areas already, because I have the same plants on both sides of the fence now. And what you're going to see in the second part of the video is down at the terrace garden, there is a brand new area of the garden, and deer pays visits to that area, so I have to fence it in anyway, so there will be another fence. So the question is, if there is anyways a new fence down there, do we need this one? So eventually that one will be for the chop, but we still have to discuss it. And I don't think it's going to happen this year because it's heavily concrete in, so have to see. But yeah, I think this is a perfect time to say thank you so much for watching part 1 of the garden tour. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked those areas that I showed you and that you also see how the garden is changing throughout the year. So later on there will be obviously more garden tours, but part 2 is going to happen tomorrow where I'll take you with me here onto the terrace garden, on the vegetable garden, and I can't wait to show you all of those areas. So thank you so much. If you decide to subscribe to my channel, thank you if you give me a thumbs up for this video, and I'd love to welcome you next time around. So take care guys, bye.